Solo story of Silver and Sword. Siegfried Alter walks along a dark, rough cobble passageway. It's night, and the echo of his boots down the cave tunnel rings loud in his ears. He's in Orleans, hunting down the origin of multiple wyvern attacks in nearby areas. The meat from each kill has been good for the tavern up to recently, but now, with it in such a state, most of it has gone to waste, or simply been frozen. There had been many dreads at the entrance. Not one of them took more than a single strike to eliminate. Pitiful creatures, really. To many, they'd be a terrifying threat, but Saber had faced infinitely worse before. He'd come back for their carcasses later. Wyvern meat keeps, and he has no need to worry so long as he's done soon, which, at this rate. He finally sees the entrance to another tunnel, and the suspicion he's carried up to now is at last confirmed. A massive, silvery-scaled beast waits for him, atop a mount of what looks to him to be miscellaneous treasures. There's gold, but very little of it. This area isn't very rich, and if the dragon wanted to gain new wealth, it would have to branch out, perhaps make a name for itself. In the event Chaldea didn't exist, Siegfried was sure someone else eventually would have come along and justly ended its tyranny. This time, however, it would be him. Siegfried readies his blade. Balmung is heavy in his right hand, and the weight pulls his mind toward the task at hand. Wyverns circle around the dragon. Origin, the strongest breed. No matter. They're all but cattle to the sharpened edge of the sword once named Graham. He rockets himself toward one in a single jump before the first reptilian monster recognizes his presence. The sword cuts cleanly through bone and scale, and as Siegfried catches himself on the opposite wall, the spray of the creature's pale blood only serves to obscure the now angry crowd behind it. The next one is easy, and Saber easily punches the creature aside without even using the sword. A third wyvern approaches, and just as it thinks to swallow him whole, Siegfried impales it through the upper jaw with Balmung. The fangs jutting out may have poisoned him had Siegfried's armor been any less powerful. Instead, the teeth crack under the pressure of their own bite, and again he tosses the animal aside like it means nothing to him. Origin meat is too strong and too tough for the general populace. That isn't his prize today. Finally, the massive beast pays him proper attention. He's sure it had a name, once upon a prayer. Most dragons do, but he isn't concerned with that. Siegfried once more aims his blade toward the creature. Not a word, not a grunt, not a sound. He leaps in its direction. 4 more sky-colored beasts swarm him all around. 3 are victims to a burst of mana projected directly from the tip of his blade. But the 4th manages to sink sharp claws into Siegfried's leg. Blood trickles out, and his eyes glow blood red. He aims his blade behind him, and another mana burst sends him spiraling toward the wyvern with the gall to claw him. Crimson bleeds over his skin, and 2 wings burst into existence, making his glide on air true. He catches up to the wyvern, pinning it with his own black tail. He grips either half of its jaws in his hands. Madness Enhancement, rank E. Before he knows what he's done, the bottom portion of the wyvern's head has been liberated from its frame. He slashes the neck of the still screaming beast, ending the horrible sound. And then a ball of fire like nothing he's felt in ages slams into his back. The leaf-like spot burns like it's been filled with white-hot coals, and for the first time that day, Siegfried's voice distorts in pain. He stands, then turns. If rage had been in his gaze before, his stare carried something far more dangerous now. Murder. Siegfried raises his arms, and the blade in his hand sparks with white fire that slowly melts to flesh. When the ruby flame of his noble phantasm truly awakens, piercing the ceiling of the cave and shaking the ground below him, only 2 more sounds escape his growling, hating voice. Balmung. Hugging. The dragon's eyes were gray. They were full of something complex, something unique. Contempt? Confusion? Perhaps some mixture of both. He knew it hated him. He knows now that it cannot anymore. The cave collapses in on itself, rock exploding around the concussive blast cascading from Siegfried's hands. When the dust finally clears, Siegfried walks over to the flash-fried corpse. It's dead, all right. The once proud dragon no longer has a head to hold those arrogant eyes. Part of him feels remorse for its death, or at least knows he should feel it. He almost hates the satisfaction he feels at the successful hunt. But this dragon had no future. There was no record of a silver dragon in France from this era. That meant its death had been soon, and tragic. All the better it should benefit him instead. Saber walks to the side to inspect its legs. Still raw, and still good. Excellent timing, he thinks. He slices off a respectably large fillet, and makes a mental note of his location. He'll return to this moment in history, and collect the rest. But first, He has a dinner date to make.